Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Travel Royally Podcast. Today we have Alan McPherson. Alan is a native of Scotland, and he has played almost every single course in Scotland. He's got a couple more to go. Please enjoy.
Today we're thrilled to have our guest from North Berwick. His name is Alan McPherson. He is a 40-year civil servant from that part of the world. And as of late, he's been caddying. And something interesting about Alan is he's played literally every single course in Scotland, with the exception of a few pitch and putts that he still needs to get out and try. So, Alan, we're thrilled to have you today. Thanks for joining me.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.
So you're from a very lovely part of Scotland, and behind me, the viewers can see, well, if you're watching this, you can see what's behind me. And it's a scene from the 13th hole at his club, which is the Glen Club, or the East Links at North Berwick. But the first question I want to get to is, are you from that area originally, North Berwick?
No, I was originally from Glasgow, and I grew up there and moved down to London for work in 1970. But I moved around the country a bit after that. My wife and I finally came back to live in Edinburgh in 1979. But we moved out to East Lothian around about 1990 when our two girls left home for university.
Excellent, excellent. So now you had a job that required you to travel quite a bit as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, the last 10 years of my work, I worked for the Scottish government as a civil servant. And I was in the organisation and planning and management of Lifeline ferry services in the Northern Isles and in the Western Isles. So that really required me to be out on the networks quite a lot, harbour development, route development and stuff like that. So, I was well used to travelling around the country, and invariably you'd be away overnight. So we could be in, the back of beyond, really, with golf clubs in the car. And in northern Scotland in the summertime, it doesn't really get dark until about midnight. So if you finish work at 5 o'clock, there's tons of time for a wee game of golf somewhere.
Exactly.
So I was well used to traveling and playing golf at the same time.
Are you familiar with an American named Jim Hartzell?
No.
Jim Hartzell is an architect in Birmingham, and he's turned the mission of his life, into playing the most remote courses in Scotland. He is, like me, and like you, I would suspect, enthralled with everything Scottish. So he's played all of those courses in the Western Isles.
Yeah.
He's a member of Dunaverty. He's a member of Durness. He's played all of those little 9-hole courses and remote courses. So I know that you've played all of them, but I think he's played all of them as well. The ones out on the west, anyway.
Yeah. I think the difficulty is that, there isn't really a comprehensive list of courses, despite what some people might think. There's any number of magazines that will purport to tell you this is the full list, etc. But a lot of the courses in Scotland aren't really registered with our governing body, Scottish Golf. You can have courses that are literally at the bottom of people's gardens. But we found out that there's an island called Stroma, which is to the north of the Scottish mainland, between the mainland and the Orkney Islands. The course has been there for time immemorial, but the island itself was uninhabited since 1968. So there's a local farmer on the mainland, keeps sheep on it, and during the summer months, he goes across, cuts the greens and the fairways on a little 9-hole course. Him and his son and a few fishermen and farmers go across for various boozy weekends, as you do, playing golf. And we found out about this. I got in touch with the farmer, and he was kind enough to let the three of us who were playing every course in Scotland go round and play it. we went across with 6 ladies and their mother. The mother was an extremely elderly woman. We went across in this fishing boat. It was her first time on the island for years and years, and it was her birthday. So they all trooped up to the ruined house and had quite a wee session to themselves. Alcohol was taken, not by us, we were playing the golf, but a storm blew up on the way back, and a fishing boat with various drunken women in it was quite an experience.
That sounds like that's an amazing story. I'm going to have to ask Jim Hartzell if he's actually played that course, but I mean, that's just magic to me, stumbling on a course like that. And I'm assuming because it's uninhabited, there's not regular or any ferry service. You literally have to get a fish.
There's no ferry service at all. And the only way that we got it was to get in touch with Jimmy Simpson, who's the local farmer. And it was quite an exercise to find out who it was that owned the land. So, the best way for us to do it, you contact a local golf club reasonably near, and you say, well, we heard that there was this course, who on earth owns it? And, there's another course on Fair Isle, which is even more remote. It's about a couple of miles long and is a tiny wee island between Orkney and Shetland. There's a 7-man plane goes out to I think there's 30 odd residents live on the island. And there's an old lighthouse keeper's course there, which an American artist by the name of Tommy Hindman from somewhere in New York State moved over there for a few years ago. And he decided to resurrect the course. But being the owner, etc., he's invented his own rules. So if you get your ball to land on the helipad and it stays there, you get 2 strokes off your shots in the next hole. Things like that. It's just good fun.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, you mentioned that there's not a comprehensive list of courses for the reasons that you described.
Yeah,
Scotland. But I think that Craig Morrison and Michael Atkinson in their book, Golfland Scotland, did a reasonable job of trying to name as many as possible, didn't they?
Yes, they did. I think that for the majority of golfers trying to play golf courses in Scotland, I mean, we're really talking about way beyond what would normally be thought of as a mainstream course. Scottish Golf is the amateur golf body in Scotland that runs golf over here. It recognises something like 579 or 97. It's just under 600 anyway, courses. But if you look closely enough, there's any number of other courses that are just unlisted anywhere.
Yeah.
And we found, we were looking for a course just southwest of Edinburgh one time, and looking on Google Earth, I came across a huge house which just happened to have a 12-hole course in the bottom of the garden. We'd never heard of this place before, so I got in touch with a local bed and breakfast place, which was literally next door, and said, would you mind giving me the phone number of your next door neighbour? So I phoned them up and said, I see you've got a golf course. Can we come and play it? We're playing for charity, and we'd really love to come along. So he let us play it, but on the condition that we didn't tell the world where it was, because he didn't want strangers knocking on his door saying, can I come and play your course, please? But when we got there, he's got a huge house, and in the back there was an annex to his house, and it was a clubhouse, a golf clubhouse with beer and a bar and pool table and all that sort of stuff. And his wife was supplying bacon rolls and gin and tonics to all of us that were there. It was great fun. But that's the kind of quirkiness that Scotland provides in addition to the mainstream. But I think that anybody that wants to play golf in Scotland, there's 600 odds to choose from. So unless you're completely daft like me, you really wouldn't go beyond that.
Right. I've been going to Scotland for 25 years, and I've played around the British Isles, Scotland, England, Ireland, Wales. I've played 85 courses, which for an American is quite a bit.
Yeah, it's a lot of traveling as well.
Yeah, exactly. But I played it's right around 200 rounds in total over there. Because I'm a member at Murray, so I've played there quite a bit. I played St. Andrews. All my buddies, when we go over, want to play that. So I played that, a dozen times or whatever. But yeah, it's just magic. So how did you come to golf in the first place?
I think that, as a young kid living in a working class part of Glasgow, my parents were pretty poor, and we had an old set of hickory golf clubs in a cupboard at home, but my dad never played, and I've got absolutely no idea why we had this old set of clubs, but they always intrigued me. And I was mad keen on football and athletics when I was a boy. And, my mum and dad really didn't have any money to enable me to join a local club. So local pitch and putt courses within Glasgow were all that I really had available to me. And it was only when I went to college as a student that a couple of the guys in my accountancy class said, we're playing golf next week. Why don't you come along? And I came along, and we played this place called Alexandra Park, which was a municipal course in Glasgow, 9 holes. That would have been in 1968. So that was the start of what became a lifelong journey. My first club was in Lothianburn in Edinburgh, which I joined in 1979 when we came back from London. And first handicap there was 22, and I got down to 8.5 at the Glen, but that's as low as I ever got. And I'm going to try to get back there one day.
single figures is good, right? So you mentioned, yeah, that's good. That makes you a very good golfer.
It's commonplace over here,
I know.
Do not lightly take a young kid playing golf over here, because he's probably off about 6.
Yeah.
I remember I was playing the Glen a few years ago, and this young lad must have been about 5 feet tall and about maybe 12 years old. He said, "Do you mind if I play through?" And I said, "Yeah, on you go." So we caught up with another group, 4 visiting golfers, and they gave this wee kid a hard time and said, you really need to stay out of our way if you're going to play through. We'll let you play through because there's only one of you. So there's a bunker about 280 off the tee on the 12th, and that's where his ball finished off the tee, and he's now on the European tour, this guy. So, do not take lightly a young kid playing golf over here. They're probably very good.
Yeah, I was playing in our club championship, not in the scratch flight, but in the next flight, and I was paired with a 13-year-old boy who ended up turning professional as well. But it was astounding to watch someone that young dismantle your golf game, before your own eyes. It was crazy.
Yes, I caddy for a young lad from the United States in the US Kids European Championships, and his name is Ayush Ben Saleh. He was playing at Monkton Hall, which is a very long parkland course to the south of Edinburgh, pouring with rain, and I think, if memory serves, he was playing off the ladies' tees. But he's 9 years old, and I think his scratch score was something like 72. So, 9-year-old playing, there's good kids over here, but that guy's play was just astonishing.
Now, you mentioned that you're a football fan. Are you a Hearts fan? Oh, no. You're from Glasgow. So I'm going to say, are you Rangers or Celtic? Which one?
Well, you can tell by the color of the chair behind me. So I already have my tickets for Seville, which is the the Europa Cup final on the when is it, the 16th of May. My wife and I decided to have a city break in Seville in Spain, and coincidentally, we just happened to be there the same day as the final. So Glasgow Rangers are currently in the semi-final, and the first leg of that is next week against Leipzig from Germany. So if we happen to get there, fine.
Well, I'll tell you, you're in the Scottish Premier League. You're 5 games to go and 6 points behind. You got some work to do.
Well, all we need is for Celtic to have a couple of draws, and then we beat them on their patch, and then we win the league by 1 point. It's doable.
It's doable. I agree. It's doable. So you, for charity, about 9 years ago, you went out and tried to play every course in Scotland, and you were successful. How much money did you raise for? You were doing this for cancer charity, correct?
Yeah, we did it for Cancer Research UK. I think the difficulty with trying to play every course is that it takes years and years, and you can't really get somebody to sign up for, I'll give you £10 if you finish it kind of thing, because by the time I finished it, people had forgotten who I was, never mind anything else, and I had retired. So I think the main thrust of it was we would get donations from friends and from the courses we would be playing. A lot of them would say, well, we'll waive the green fee and just give that to the charity instead. So we raised about £4,000 in total, which was fine. But in truth, we could have raised a hell of a lot more by just writing a blank check to the charity, because I wouldn't like to think what we paid for travel, hotel bills, food, green fees, golf balls especially, and golf shoes, things like that are consumables, which, I reckon we must have spent thousands on that. But it was great fun doing it. And,
well, that's the point, right? It's not the destination, it's the journey.
That was what it was all about. And we had a lot of laughs on the way around and some serious golf, some outrageous luck, bad luck, and the odd shank here and there. But it was good fun. It's good fun.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm grateful that Craig Morrison connected us. And, I've got a copy of the book, and I'm actually going to buy a couple dozen of them and give them as gifts to clients.
Yeah.
I think it's a wonderful book, and they're very grateful for the assistance you gave them so that they didn't have to travel to all those courses.
No, it was a pleasure. And, I think that any reader gets from that the diversity that we have over here. We've got links courses and parkland courses, but beyond that, there's the 9-hole golf courses in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
No matter where you're traveling in the remoter parts of the country, there's invariably a village which has developed a course many years ago, which has become the social fulcrum for the village itself. You've got the churches, the schools, and the golf courses, and that ties the communities together in quite a deep way, in a way.
Absolutely. I know there are, and I know you've seen these based on your travels, there are practice putting greens in the centers of towns, or where the community comes together and can practice putting.
Within a mile of the city centre in Edinburgh, there's the Bruntsfield Links pitch and putt course, which is 36 holes. And it's got probably the oldest, it's one of the oldest places where golf has ever been played anywhere. And the pub, which is now a pub, but it used to be the clubhouse, it's literally been open for hundreds of years. And it's a place called The Meadows, about a mile away from the Princes Street and the Edinburgh Castle itself. And the holes are maybe 40, 50 yards each. And even in the winter time, there's a separate I think it's a 9-hole or an 18-hole pitch and putt course there, and it's between where the students live to with their halls of residence and the university on the other side. So it's quite a heavily walked area as well, and it's just an open air space in the middle of the city, which you know it's rather bizarre watching people playing golf, but it exists. 36 holes of it.
Well, now that you're retired, you've turned your attention for. I know how much you get joy from caddying, but tell us about that. Where do you caddy in that area?
I'm now working at my own club at the Glen, and I also work for a company called caddyhire.com, which is an internet-based agency which provides caddies for the European tours and for local amateurs, pro-ams, and indeed anybody from the States that comes across can get in touch with them and they'll provide caddies. Mainly, Caddy Hire provides us work at Archerfield, Lough Ness, and some of the other local courses round about here. But I've been as far as Turnberry's championship course, the Ailsa course, to caddy there. And when professionals come up, either to practice before major tournaments or in pro-ams, we'll sometimes get a bag from them, which is, you know, it's quite a thrill for the likes of me to be caddying for a tournament pro, and it keeps me on my toes, and it's good fun, but it's surprisingly entertaining.
Well, you mentioned that you caddied for Luke Donald, and well, I mean, you mentioned to me before we started.
Yeah.
People think they missed something, but you caddied for him at Lough Ness New. What's that like? You know, caddying for someone that's been #1 in the world, right? Back in probably 15 years ago, he was #1 in the world for a brief time, and then caddying for the likes of me or
I think
the obese Austrian that you caddied for.
Yeah, I think the main starting point is, you know, pleased to meet you. What would you want me to do? You know, I can do this, that, and the other, and I can provide you with some lines to take on the greens. But you know, you have to assume that Luke Donald knows how to read a green better than I do anyway. Right. So we basically just started, you know, saying, you know, I'll carry your bag, but is there anything particular you want? Yardages to the front, the middle. You know, you'll be able to see the hazards on the course, so there's no point in me trying to tell you where they are. Yeah. There's nothing blind. There's maybe one blind hole on that course. But aside from that, he went round, and I think it was about 67 in about 2.5 hours. And it was absolute gentleman. And it was quite funny because I phoned my wife to say that he's playing at North Berwick West in the afternoon. Would you care to come across and we'll watch him? So that was all done, and we followed him round, and there was maybe 500 or so locals had heard that he was playing. So in this crowd, he spotted me, and he came across and he said, hello, Alan, and you know, pleased to meet you and your lovely wife again. And you know, roundabout everybody knows each other over here, and a lot of the guys were saying, how the hell does he know Donald? So I'm just keeping my face straight, you know. But you know, I have come across a number of other Ryder Cup players, European Tour players, and it's quite fun sometimes playing with them, and it's serious, but you do get a laugh now and again.
Yeah, but I think for me, the astounding part would be you caddy for a lot of bad golfers, right? I mean, you have caddied for a lot of bad golfers, and then you caddy for the best in the world. I mean, difference. I mean, if Luke Donald went around Lough Ness New in 67, he probably didn't miss but 1 or 2 shots all day.
I think he could have gone maybe about 64, 65 if he had seen some of the lies round about the greens. Some of the runoffs are quite subtle, and you know, a links course will run mainly on the ground rather than through the air. So you know, he knows how to play links golf, but your average player coming across from the States might not realize that links golf is played mostly on the ground.
Right.
And that if you hit a hard shot into a wind, the wind will just carry the ball up in the air rather than drive the ball through the wind.
Right.
So you've really got to take that into account and factor in what kind of shot you want to play. Right. If I can take you to the 16th hole at Dunbar, which is 158 yards facing due west, it plays an 8-iron with the wind behind you. But I was playing about a month ago and I had a flat-out driver. There was 4 of us. I managed to get to the green, but out of bounds is 15 feet to the left of the left side of the green, and the sea is 15 feet to the right of the right-hand side of the green. So unless you hit an absolutely straight shot, you're either off the golf course wet or you're in bushes behind a 6-foot high wall. So, you know, just hit the ball straight and be careful. And it's not easy. So, you know, that's the difference between, you know, parkland courses, which may have a wee bit more room. It's a more predictable type of shot that you're trying to play, and a links course where you may have to play it along the ground into the wind and keep it down by all means.
Yeah. I was telling someone the other day that in my course up at Murray, the first day that I played there as a member, first 2 days I played, there's a par 3 on the back, the last par 3 on the back. And the first day I played it downwind and I got a birdie and I hit an 8-iron. The next day I played it into the wind and got a birdie hitting 2-iron.
Yeah.
And the other one that I played Dunbar, and this is one of the funny, and I know you've had this experience. I went out in a heavy wind there. I shot 49 on the front, 35 on the back.
Yeah.
You know, and when you tell people that, they're like, how could you, like, the wind? I mean, you know, 49, 35.
Yeah, I think that's the issue, that you know, you've got to learn to use the wind rather than fight it. Because as soon as you start fighting the wind, your ball is going to be too high, and it'll just get diverted right or left, and you know, you'll lose distance.
Right.
So you know, even a driver off the deck. We learned a long time ago that, you know, in a steady, hard wind, if the ball's sitting up a tiny wee bit, use your driver. You might not hit it very high, but even if you hit it straight along the ground, it's still going to run further than, you know, you would get maybe a 3-iron or a 4-iron if it rides up into the wind.
Right.
So, you know, don't be afraid of being creative.
Yeah, you know, one of the things, I appreciate that advice. I'm sure the listeners will appreciate that. But this whole idea of having a caddy, taking a caddy, we recommend that our guests take caddies, local caddies, whenever possible. And some people will go, well, you know, that's $100. I'm like, well, it is $100, but it'll be the best $100 you've ever spent, because not only are you getting a caddy, you're getting a storyteller, you're getting a local tour guide, you're getting a mental health counselor, you're getting a social director. So how did you come to caddying? What made you think, hey, when I'm retired, I want a caddy?
I wanted to have something which involved being outdoors, and I mean, golf's been my hobby since I was a boy, you know, certainly since 18, 19 years old as a student. So caddying over here is one thing that is easy to pick up. And I managed to get an invite onto Renaissance, which was at that time, you know, a pretty private place to play, one of the premium courses in Scotland, and certainly around about here. So I met the head pro and was chatting away, and it was nearly lunchtime. So he said, well, why don't we just have a sandwich over lunch? So we were having a blether, and I said I wouldn't mind caddying when I retire. So next thing I knew, he had said, "Well, I'll phone you at the start of next year, and we'll get you into the program." So that was the start of it, and then some of the local caddies at Renaissance worked for Caddy Hire as well. So they said, "Well, here's the number. Phone the guy up and see if you can talk your way into a job." So I did that, and here we are 10, 12 years later, still working away, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. It's kept me fit, and it's, in a sense, it's maybe saved my life. I was caddying about 2015. I had a pain in my neck, didn't know what it was, thought it was a pulled muscle. Went to the doctor, and she said, "What are you doing tomorrow morning?" I said, "Well, I was planning going for a walk along the beach." And she said, "How does the hospital sound? There's something wrong." It turned out I had a triple heart bypass, which I only found out that I needed it because of caddying, because I was using cardiovascular activity,
Right.
and getting out of breath and getting a pain. And had I not done that, it might just have been that I had a bad heart attack,
Right.
without knowing it was coming. My dad died of that, and my brother died of a heart attack when he was 59. So, it's hereditary. And maybe it saved my life, maybe it didn't. But I'm always thankful that I've taken the trouble to keep myself fit and active. And here I am, 72 years old, enjoying myself.
Still caddying. That's fantastic. Now, when you caddy, do you carry the clubs, or you take a trolley?
Yeah, you carry the clubs. If it's a big heavy bag, you might get lucky to find that the guy's height and build is the same as yours, in which case it rides okay on your hip. But the majority of times you'll get a bag that is fairly reasonable. It doesn't really take anything. But when you get a great big tour bag, and it's a horrible wet windy day, and it doesn't fit your height, and you can't really say, "Hang on a minute till I adjust your bag."
Yeah.
You just got to take what you get. And the biggest worry is losing head covers. It's a weird thing, but I'm uniquely talented in that regard. I can guarantee to lose a head cover. So you always keep a hand and count the number of head covers that there are. Make sure that the head covers are firmly on, and that the putter head in particular has got its head cover. It does not do to say, "I'll be back in 10 minutes. I'm away to get your head cover."
Yeah. Well, that reminds me. So, having to run back to a different hole to get the head cover for the putter to the previous green. We were talking earlier, you had an interesting experience with a gentleman. I think you said he was from Austria, that one of his clubs cleaned in a particular way and handed it to him in a particular way.
He was he was quite a large and unfit looking guy, and this was at the Glen a few years ago. And I noticed right away that he was a stickler for detail, and he insisted that he gets his clubs given to him, the handle upwards and the head downwards. So I had normally done it the other way around, to show people that you've cleaned the head, all of the grooves are clean, it's nice and dry, and it's above all else a 7-iron. You wanted a 7, that's your 7. But this guy wanted it the other way around, and we were on about I think it was the 5th hole at the Glen. I gave him the club the way that I wanted to, rather than the way that he demanded it. And he hit his shot, but the next thing I knew was the club was flying past my ear. He had thrown it at me and then stormed up the fairway, cursing me in German, I think it was. So I didn't say anything at the time. I just walked on. We're on about the 8th or the 9th, and he said 7-iron. So I just said, "Well, you'll find it down at the back of the 5th tee where you threw it." I don't get paid as a caddy to be a club retriever. So, I'll wait for you. So I just stood my ground, got my mobile phone out and pretended I was looking up the internet and stuff. And eventually, after about 20 minutes, he came back. By that time, he had calmed down and apologized. But I said that, if you try that again, you might find that, there's a wee bit more of a robust reaction from your caddy. But he gave me £50 after the round, which was very nice of him. But I'd be quite happy never see him again.
Yeah, well, that's a good tip, particularly after you probably thought you weren't going to get any tip after the way that he.
Well, there's sometimes, it's just an absolute joy to caddy for people. I remember we were at Renaissance a few years back, and I called them the odd couple. It was like Walter Matthau and Jack Lemmon, these two old guys from New York, and they were absolutely hilarious. I won't insult you by trying an American accent, but my guy Walter, he's getting fed up with Jack, moaning on about his sore back and his hay fever and sniffing away and stuff, and he shouts over to him and he says, "Hey Jack, give me a warning when you're going to take a breath, and I'll try and play my shot in relative silence." So Jack then shouts back, "Walter, you're bloody lucky at your age you can still hear me." And this went on and on. They were just hilarious on the way around. And we went in for a beer afterwards, and it was just pure entertainment. There's no other way for it. It was one of the more memorable caddying rounds ever.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, I think of all the caddies that I've had in Scotland, and I don't know how many I've taken on those 85 courses, but probably, let's say 30. Right? I don't know that I've ever had a bad experience with a caddy. I may have had caddies that were quiet or not particularly entertaining or whatever, but for the most part, the stories are amazing. And, I remember the first time I went over, I took my dad for his 60th birthday 25 years ago, and we played at, the first place we played was Prestwick. And we show up and there's a bit of a har, and your first time there, you don't even know where the course is. It's so
it's tucked away, isn't it?
And we had two brothers that were caddies, and this was 9 a.m. on a Monday, and they were drunk at 9 a.m. on a Monday. I mean, apparently, I found later that they had gotten paid on Friday and worked on Saturday and drank their way through Monday morning. And they had, I can't repeat their stories because they're a number of 4-letter words included in their stories, but they were hilarious. And I've gone back since, and unfortunately, sadly, they both passed away from drink.
Yeah. Well, that's the downside of being an oddball caddy, isn't it? I mean, I think that kind of caddy is on the way out. We're a lot more professional, and the rules are that if we were ever even remotely smelling a drink or anything, you just wouldn't get the job. You would again. So it's something which we take a deal of pride in, that we know what we're doing, and it's something which US American guys coming across here can save themselves. I would like to think half a dozen shots by taking somebody that actually knows where they're going around the course.
Right.
And there's, but
well, you're right. I've noticed what you're saying, that there are the caddy's professionalism has increased markedly over the last 25 years. I remember a couple of years ago, I was at Kingsbarns, and I had a caddy who was a retired CFO and he was English, living in Kingsbarns.
Yeah.
And just a delightful guy, very professional. But like you said, you guys take it very seriously now. There are very few people left, I would think, that are like our two caddies from past Prestwick 25 years ago.
Yeah, I think that the other aspect which gets us is that when you're caddying for a tour professional, you've really got to react to what he's wanting rather than a prescribed thing that you want to provide. So if somebody wants to particularly know about the history of the course or whatever, who owns it, all that sort of stuff, you've got to be there to be able to give them that history and be accurate in your yardages rather than saying, I think it's somewhere between 160 and 170, but
right.
see what you think once you've played it. I mean, that doesn't work. You've got to say it's 162 to the front plus 17, but the front of the green is a false front, so you've got to hit to the flag. So that's your yardage. You've got to be that accurate.
Yeah.
And also say, well, the wind is going to add somewhere between 5 and 10 to the yardage. So take that into account. And, for most guys, you would be able to pick up pretty quickly what the clubs might be, given that, if you're, say, a 10, 15 handicapper, I would expect you to hit the ball a particular yardage. But when you see these pros, they hit the ball an absolute country mile.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
what might be a 7-iron for me is, probably a wedge or something for them.
Right. Yeah, it's astounding when you hear the commentary on a professional golf event, and they'll go, he's got 230 yards and he's hitting a 4-iron.
Yeah.
What in the world? I need a driver to hit it that far, it seems like.
Caddying in a pro event can be quite an alarming experience, but funny as well. I was caddying for a lady on the Ladies European Tour at Archerfield a few years ago in the Scottish Ladies Open, and we met up just outside the pro shop, and it's a lovely hot summer's day, about 70 degrees, not a cloud in the sky. There she is, wetsuit trousers. And I'm thinking, that's a bit odd. So, walking around a couple of the holes, she got a wee bit warmer and a bit rosy around the cheeks. And I'm saying, Georgina, you look as though you're absolutely boiling. What's the story with these wetsuit trousers? And she said, well, then I've got a new pair of white trousers on underneath, and I had bent down to get the ball out of the putting green just before we met, and I heard this ominous rip. Put my hand around, and oh my God, I've taken the backside out of my trousers. So that's the story. And I said, how bad is it? Is it much? So there's quite a sizable crowd round about us. So without any sign of embarrassment, she just turned her back on me and took her wetsuit trousers off and bent over, and quite a sight. And I'm not sure what the crowd made of it, but she certainly had done some damage.
That's funny.
Beyond repair, I think.
Now, I hope the people that are watching this are enjoying the view behind me. That's obviously the Glen Club. As you mentioned, that's the 13th hole, but you're also a member at Dunbar, right? How did you come to be a member at Dunbar?
Basically, my wife and I had both been members at the Glen for years and years, and she was looking for a wee bit more of a change to play some different courses. So she knew some people over in Dunbar, and they said, well, why don't you just join here as well? So that's what she did, and she enjoyed playing there, and I went over as her guest now and again, and I thought, well, why not? It's £600 a year. It's not expensive. The cost of golf over here as a member is not that great. And, looking at that hole behind you, I used to be the match and competition secretary at the Glen, and I got to sign all of the hole-in-one certificates. So I think it was about maybe 10 years or so ago that my wife got a hole-in-one at that very hole.
Holy
so, So we now have a framed photograph, which used to be in the downstairs toilet in our last house. And people would come for dinner in our house and see this when they went to the toilet and come back and say, how many holes in one have you had, Alan? That'll be none.
I'll tell you what.
I did get one in 2016.
You did get one in 2016?
Yeah, it was. I had my heart operation in the January, and I had my first full round on the 4th of May, Star Wars Day, in 2016. And Dunbar starts off with 2 par 5s, as you know, followed by a par 3. So I did start 5-5-1, but I didn't have the energy. I just about had the energy to finish the round. It was my first ever round back after a heart operation.
And you got a hole in one. That's amazing.
Well, it took me 46 years, so I don't think I'll manage another one.
Yeah, well, I had a hole in one about 3 years ago. It was my only one. And I'm going to say I'd been playing golf for like 43 years. So I had the same deal. Well, we love Dunbar, and I'm eager to get over sometime to play the Glen. I would love to do that.
Well, I'll sign you on anytime you're there.
I'll look forward to that. Now, you've got some great advice for people coming over, but one of the things, just based on your experience, having played all these different courses, near and far, big and small, well-known and not known at all, we have a lot of people that'll call us at Royal Links Golf Tours and say, hey, we want to play 36 a day. We want to play Troon and Prestwick in the same day. We want to play St. Andrews and Carnoustie in the same day. We want to play North Berwick and Muirfield in the same day. What's your advice for people coming over when you would say, have you thought about the Glen or Dunbar or, any of the other great courses nearby?
I think I would start by asking them why they want to do that, because, unless you're actually very, very physically fit and want to spend all of your time playing golf without a rest, then it's far too much golf.
Yeah,
you're there to enjoy yourself, not to undergo an endurance test. So why put yourself through all of that? And playing these big courses, they're championship courses for a reason. They're very difficult. They're very long. And why spend 10 hours walking the thick end of 15 miles going around 2 championship courses, and then think, well, I'm going to have to do the same again tomorrow.
Right.
And it's costing me upwards of £400 or £500 a day. You can spend that money if you want, but I would suggest that somebody coming over here looks seriously at how fit they really are, how much they really want to play golf, and how much they want to see Scotland as well as play golf. Because if you play golf, 36 holes a day, sure as hell you'll be going to your bed immediately afterwards if you're trying to do it over a week. Yeah. So, let's just look at what's possible. Play Muirfield or Gullin 1 or Renaissance or Archerfield as the big premium course when you're over here. But go to the other courses round about. They're smaller, shorter, they're more manageable. There's a course about 5-6 miles away here called Kilspindy. It's under 5,500 yards, but it's one of the best tests of golf in this area. Yeah. And it's absolutely fabulous. Yeah. It's a links course, which is about 10 feet off sea level. And it sits out on a point in the middle of the estuary, and it's really exposed to the wind. So if you're battling there on a windy day, if you break 80, you're playing very, very well.
Yeah.
And you'll also find that it's one of the more welcoming courses in the area. Great little traditional clubhouse, great pro, and it's going to cost you a fraction of what you'll pay for the likes of Gullin 1. And it won't take you 5.5 hours either.
Right. Well, I think 2 points. One of the things that we pride ourselves on at Royal Links Golf Tours, we want people to experience the culture of Scotland. We encourage people to take days off and explore Edinburgh or explore St. Andrews or go fly fishing or whiskey tasting or on a distillery tour or anything to get away from the golf and experience the culture. The second point that I would make, by playing courses like Kilspindie or the Glen or Dunbar, when you go into the clubhouse and have a beer after your round, you'll be sitting with members and not a busload of fellow Americans like you will at these other courses. There's nothing worse in my mind. And this happened to me at Ballyliffin in Ireland. I had 3 guys with me. We pull in the parking lot, and beside us pulls a bus. And out spills 50 obese, obnoxious Americans. You know, where's the cart barn? You know, what's it take to get a hot dog around here? You know, you're like, oh, great. You know, the last thing you want to hear is, for me, is an American accent when I'm over there. I want to be immersed in the culture and the golf and so forth. But something you mentioned, I think, is important, and that is that you've mentioned a lot of great courses, right? You just mentioned Kilspindie, and you've talked about Dunbar. There are courses like Craigielaw and Loughness New and others. You live in a very golf-rich area. So, I mean, I can count, and you could count more, but I know of at least a dozen courses in the Lothians that are just wonderful places to play. So what do you think makes the courses there so special?
I think the fact that they're well designed, they're well established, they fit within the local landscape. It's not a gated community where there's a great big gate, you can't see beyond it, you don't get in because it's a private country club, and it's all affordable over here. And as I've said, you know, the cost for my membership at the moment is about £600 odd. And when you come over to play the Glen with me, it cost me £15 to sign you on. Now, £15 wouldn't get you past the first tee at a hell of a lot of courses over your direction. I've been lucky enough to play. I got an invite from one of my friends that I met caddying, who lives in Desert Mountain, just beyond North Scottsdale. You know, a rich man's paradise with 6 Jack Nicklaus courses within his estate. Fantastic. And another friend of mine, Glenn, lives in Del Mar, just about a mile north of San Diego and the Torrey Pines. You know, we've played there as well. Great courses. Yeah. But, you know, over here, you don't have to play the big courses to play quality, because it's the same land, it's the same ground conditions, it's the same soil. Yeah. There might be more greenkeepers at Muirfield than there are at the Glen, but the skills involved are just the same. Right. And the guy that is currently the head greenkeeper at Dunbar used to be the number 2 at the old course in St Andrews. You know, what he doesn't know about keeping a decent golf course, you know, doesn't deserve, you know, mentioning. So, you know, he keeps the Dunbar course in absolutely fantastic condition. Well,
it's funny you say that, Alan. This past summer, I was fortunate enough to play Scott's Craig. With the captain. Yeah. And we sat down with the club manager or general manager. I guess they don't have a secretary technically. They have a general manager. And Tina was with me, my girlfriend. So the 4 of us sat down afterwards for a wee dram and a bite. And they said, our course would be in better condition if we could afford more greenskeepers. And I said, well, how many do you have? They said, we have 4, you know, 2, I guess they have 2 full-time and 2 part-time. And they said, compare that to Dumbarnie. They have 42 greenskeepers at Dumbarnie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. I mean, you know, that's part of the reason why in this championship style courses, it's more costly play there because they've got such a big staff, right?
I think that's true, but you can still have the quality of turf, the close knitted fescue grasses that we have over here, which the fairway length is millimeters rather than this nice turf which sits up like a doormat. In some of the American courses I've played, where it's easy to sweep the ball.
Right.
If you don't hit the ball properly off links turf, your ball ain't going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
So it's a different skill set that's required.
Yeah.
And you can have that experience at the most basic level, playing the Glen or Dunbar or Craigielaw or anywhere else. They're more modest in nature, but not in quality.
Right.
And that's I think something which the Americans that I've met caddying, they'll sometimes say, well, it's only $50 to get on. It can't be much of a place. And it's only a par 65, so it can't be worth playing. That's wrong.
Yeah.
A 65 turns into a 90 on a windy day.
Right.
Believe me.
Right. I agree. Now, when North Americans come over, when they stay and play in East Lothian, what can they expect? From the overall experience, not just the golf, but the overall experience.
I think the overall experience is of a location that is geared to golf tourism. The hotels, the guest houses, the bars and restaurants, they all need to understand what a golfer wants. They don't want to pay a fortune for food and drink. They want something which, if you want to wear your hat indoors, ask first, but, you'll get away with it in most places. In some places, they'll very politely ask you to take your hat off. Right. You'll have seen that yourself sometimes. But I think in general, the places around about here are all geared towards golf tourism. The courses are easy to access. They're relatively affordable. The one thing that is not easy to predict is the weather. Right. You'll know yourself. You can have 4 seasons in one day over here easily. Right. As I look out the window here, the coastal Har fog has lifted, and I might indeed get my game of golf this afternoon. But yesterday was a real no-no, and it felt like about 5 degrees. The day before, I was playing in my shorts at Blairgowrie up in Perthshire, right, and it was about 65, 70 degrees. So, you'll get that weather change. Right. And as long as golfers come prepared for that and don't expect this to be, Spain with kilts, it's just not going to happen.
That's classic. Well, I've got a couple of quick questions. I'll go rapid fire with you. You've played every course in Scotland. What would you say is your favorite amongst all of them?
Probably Kingsbarns, but I think you can go to the most humble course and be absolutely stunned by the quality of the design. There's a course called Carluke, which is in a former mining area in the just south of Glasgow. It's pretty run down as a place, but the course itself is amazing. There's 2 or 3 holes with grace anywhere. Yeah. The rest of it, maybe not so much so. But my point is that even in the most basic golf course, there's always something that, you think, wow, that was worth playing. Yeah. Might just be 1 hole, but it's something that you'll find.
Right. If you could play any course in the world that you haven't played, what course would you want to play?
Switzerland, Crans-sur-Sierre, which is a mountain course way up in the Alps. And if you ever get the chance to watch on Golf Channel the European Tour events there, it's absolutely an amazing looking place. I suspect it's a wee bit elite and a wee bit above my price range, but who knows, maybe one day.
Well, I have watched tournaments there. I don't think that would be a course you would want to walk either. You might need to take a buggy, right?
Well, I think if there's any Swiss caddies, we'll be around and swap
There
a
you
few
go.
stories.
I love that. Now, I have another question. If you could pick 4 people to play golf with, living or dead, who would they be and where would you play?
Seve Ballesteros, Tiger, Lee Trevino, just for a laugh. I think he's probably the most inventive player I've ever seen. Whether I could stand, as many jokes as he tells all the way around. Maybe Arnold Palmer as well in his prime. I think I was about 20, 24, something like that. And he was playing in the Open at Muirfield. And he was in the tent, the exhibition tent, picking up a jersey from Pringle. And as I turned around, I heard this accent. I turned around and I said, God, that's Arnold Palmer. So I said, oh, can I have your autograph, Mr. Palmer? And he said, yeah, that's fine. We stood there for a minute or two. And he said, where do you play, son? And I said, told him where I played. And he said, well, stick to it. It's a great sport. And I thought, that's fantastic. He actually spends time speaking to somebody like me. And I never forgot that. He was such a nice guy.
Yeah.
And,
that was his reputation, right? He never denied someone an autograph. It's interesting. Those people that you pick are all obviously Open Championship winners.
Yeah.
Great. They all have a lot of character. And the one that I'm surprised about is Lee Trevino, but only mildly. He's a favorite of mine. The Open that he won at Muirfield, where he chipped in, it seems like 7 or 8 times. And I don't think I'm exaggerating. He was getting up and down from everywhere. It's one of the most memorable Opens of all time in my mind.
Yeah, Jacqueline never recovered from that because, thereafter he was, I think he was broken from the point of view of winning top tournaments on a regular basis. He did, he did win the US Open, and I can't remember what the sequence was, but I think that, from a European perspective, it was really something which we thought he never overcame properly. And Trevino was a fantastic golfer, and I loved watching the improvisation. And as to where these guys might play, I really don't know. But somewhere where the weather was nice and warm and there was no wind, and they could actually play the shots. Alternatively, put them out at Carnoustie on a windy day and see what happens.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Coincidentally, you mentioned Jacqueline at Muirfield, and I didn't put this together until you just mentioned it. But at the last Open at Muirfield, which must have been like 2015,
2013,
I was there, and they had a VIP. I call it a VIP area. All you had to do was have a MasterCard.
Yeah.
Show your MasterCard, and you got into this special area. And Glenn Morangy had a building erected there, and we went in for a whiskey, and who's sitting there? Tony Jacqueline.
Yeah.
And he was about to do some speaking to a true group of VIPs. He and his wife were sitting there. We sat down across from them, and we started talking. And he said to his wife, could you get me a glass of water? And my friend who was with me stood up and said, I'll be happy to do that. And he went and got him the water. And he was a very nice guy. He's written a book about his experiences in golf, and I think specifically about the Ryder Cup. And he calls out players like Mark James, who were really misbehaving in Ryder Cup events, behind the scenes. And he calls out Americans who, when he went over to play in the U.S., literally in front of the tour committee said, we don't want foreigners on our tour.
Oh.
Right. And he names them by name, and you're like, wow. He doesn't hold anything back. So my last question, Alan, would be, if you had to give someone some advice, someone coming to Scotland for the first time to play links golf, do you have 2 or 3 pieces of advice that you would give them about playing links golf?
Yeah, I thought about this in the over the period. I think the main thing is do your research before you come over and look at reviews and rankings of courses. Don't get suckered into, all of these big trophy courses. Those are the ones I know about, therefore I'll stick to them. There's websites on the top 100 courses in Scotland. National Club Golfer does reviews, as does a magazine called Golf Monthly. All of these have got rankings. So, try them to see where the smaller courses might be. And don't be overambitious to try to play 36 holes a day for a week, unless you're really fit. Accept that the weather might be difficult and come prepared. Midges are a particular problem in the west and north of Scotland during the summer, but there's less of a problem over here. But by all means, pack the strongest anti-mosquito spray that you can find. Driving over here, most hire cars have manual gear changes, and we drive on the left. Distances will look short, but some of our roads are narrow and busy, and there's nothing worse than trying to drive for you on the wrong side of the road, change gear manually, and rush to get somewhere, because sure as fate you might be late. And some starters will be flexible, others won't. Don't hesitate to ask the local golfers when you're over here where we should play, where we should dine, where we should have a beer, because they'll know and they'll be very glad to help. And allow sightseeing time if you can. I don't know if you've been over to Edinburgh during the festival, but the whole month of August is the biggest arts festival in the world. And it's a day not to be missed. But if I can leave you with one thought from a caddy's perspective, links golf is played as much on the ground as it is in the air. So just let the ground be your friend. The low running shot is what you're needing, and on a windy day, don't expect to hit your normal distances. As I said about the 16th at Dunbar, it's anything between an 8-iron and a 3-wood or a driver. So use your imagination. Think about how you would really need to stay under the wind and hug the ground. And you will get bounces that you think, what the hell happened there? You will get 70-degree, 6-foot, 10-foot deep bunkers. So, be prepared to chip out backwards if you're stood in a bunker and you cannot see the green. Sometimes you might just look at the sky, but, that's for the pros. You leave that to them. Chip out backwards and accept the bogey rather than stay in there and take 10.
Well, I've seen professionals hit out sideways or backwards in bunkers in Scotland, right?
Oh yeah. There's no shame in that. And I saw Spieth a couple of days ago. He was playing, and he went sideways into an area where it was a temporary immovable obstruction, and he got a relief from there. That's using your brain, so by all means, have a beer the night before you play golf over here, but keep enough of your brain cells to be able to think while you're in the golf that you come over to enjoy.
Well, I'll tell you, I thought you were going to bring up Shane Lowry, who seemed like he was punching out from everywhere in the trees at Hilton Head. Still almost won the golf tournament, but I was watching him frustrated with his tee shot, just punch out into the fairway, not get upset, and then stiff the wedge and knock in the putt for par. I mean, it was,
He's one of the most inventive players that I've come across. We watched the Scottish Open up in Royal Aberdeen a few years ago, which I think, if memory serves, Justin Rose won. We saw your man Lowry at the practice range before we went out. He'd already finished his round, we watched maybe 4 or 5 hours of golf, came back to the car, past the practice range. He was still there.
Yeah.
5 hours later, he maybe had a sandwich or something, but he was still there. And, he didn't get to where he is through just luck. It was through a hell of a lot of hard work. And he knows how to play links golf as a result of his victory at Royal Portrush a couple of years back. But, there are skills that are peculiar to links golf, and that's what Americans should be trying to discover for themselves.
Right. Well, I was at that Open in Royal Portrush on the Thursday, and it was all of the Irish players had huge throngs of people following them, and
yeah,
I think that was the tournament. Rory on the first hole hit it out of bounds. And that was the end of Rory. I think taking an 8 on the first hole kind of deflated his. And I think he missed the cut by 1.
Yeah.
Even after such a disastrous start. But Alan, this has been fantastic. I'm so grateful for your time today. I know that I'm the only thing standing between you and a tea time in about 40 minutes. So
yes, it's 4 minutes. Yes, it's an hour and 20 minutes. I got time.
Okay. Well, anyway, we really do appreciate your time, and we can't wait to get this posted, and we know everyone's going to enjoy your commentary. So thanks very much.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Alan for coming on with us today. I hope you enjoyed being with us. Thank you again for sharing your experiences and stories from your time in Scotland. I hope everybody enjoyed it. Please share, and we'll see you next week.